our final question for the evening belongs to Raingrad, I believe.
Rengrad. Yep. Pulling them up.
Thank you very much. Raingrad, how you doing, brother? You are muted. Actually, you were server muted. Never mind, but you are still manually muted. So, Raingrad, can you hear me?
There we go. I can hear you.
Raingrad, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you doing?
I cannot complain. Cannot complain. What's your question, bro?
Well, I actually had two quick ones, but mainly I just wanted to start out with two statements really quick. I find it awesome that you're into Warhammer. It's awesome seeing another person in complete and utter confusion like I was a few months ago. I probably saw every Luton's video 3-4 times over.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to suggest the Ridiculous podcast, but Brock beat me to it. So, but yeah, seeing all their videos, it's amazing. I love it. And so I'm looking forward to seeing your other videos on it. And then just wanted to shit on Game of Thrones just because I don't think it's shat enough. Season 8 is a piece of shit. But there was one good part in it. One good part. And most people don't even know what that part was. It was after the dragon melts the entire city and it's just death and destruction and everything's collapsed and Arya's walking through the destroyed city. Yeah. Like time dilates and she turns around and she sees a white horse. And I remember this like religious text I read a long time ago. It was the Book of Revelations. It was like, and I looked and and behold a pale horse and his name is Death and hell followed him kind of thing. So it was like, it was perfect, like symbolism that most people missed because literally that's right after the whole city's destroyed. But,
I'm gonna be honest, I completely fucking missed that. That is a good
it was
catch.
like one of the Force Horsemen. But I don't know if they made it that way, but that's what it came off as. So that's the only part I enjoyed out of that. But
all right.
My main question, I guess my main question is the way they started doing single target and AoE has kind of changed, I feel like, since Pandaria, Draenor, and Legion. Mm-hmm. I remember when talents used to just change or alter your play style of your character, of your class.
Yeah.
So you would still have your basic single target and your basic AoE.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I remember Destruction Warlocks used to have that ability, Manaroth something, where your Rain of Fire is now 300% bigger.
Yeah.
So it's like, so shit like that, you know? So, but everyone had their basics, so you wouldn't have to choose one or the other. That way you could play any part of the game and still be semi-relevant.
Yeah.
The way they started doing it now, it feels like you have to choose. Either you go single target or AoE, and that just like pigeonholes you into a certain gameplay style. So my question is do you think the way they've changed their way of like the talents in that regard, do you think that's healthy for the game, or maybe am I missing something? Like, is it a good idea the way they're doing it, or was it better in the past?
If you go back, if you go back to where you went, right? So sort of the Warlords of Draenor era, Mr. Pandaria era of things, then yes, this is a pretty big change to that. But if you go back even further and you go back to, say, for example, Wrath, or even TBC, this was basically the way you played. So in TBC, in Wrath, you would usually have, well, not TBC so much, but Wrath, really, you would have different builds depending on what it was that you wanted to do. So if you wanted to go very heavily into AoE, you would take different talents to, if you were to go, say, for example, into single target. And if you wanted to do cleave, for example, I remember all the way back in Cataclysm, I had 3 different cleave specs depending on the number of mobs that I had to cleave, right? So if it was just one other mob, I would have a very specific build for that. If it was 2 mobs plus the boss, there would be a build for that. 3 mobs plus the boss, there would be a build for that. And then, of course, anything above 3 mobs plus the boss would actually turn into an AoE spec. But then in AoE, I had a full AoE spec. I had a single target AoE spec. I had a cleave AoE spec. So you had multiple specs depending on, and sometimes it would be literally the difference between one talent. So just one talent being different from one to the others, but that one talent buffs something that you would need for one scenario that you wouldn't need for another. But this, of course, is on the very high end of raiding. So back then I was still doing mythic raids, and sort of chasing realm first and stuff like that. Obviously, if you're just raiding heroic or even casual mythic, you shouldn't have to go that deep. But I do prefer the olden days of doing things where you are not pigeonholed, but pigeonholing yourself into doing something very specific.
Yeah, so you have more meaningful choice, it feels like, rather
Yes.
than them forcing you to pick one or the other.
Yeah,
I
but
agree.
what also makes it really cool, and I guess this is going to be very new for a lot of players that maybe didn't start all the way back then, is depending on what your role is in a specific fight. So if your guild requires you to do something specific, that might require you to change your build a little. And now with the new utility talents also, this makes it even better, right? Because the utility talents are going to give you the opportunity to, if you need to kite, for example, you're going to take a lot more of the movement abilities in your utility, in the utility tree. But then for your main tree, you're also going to try and take more of the on the move kind of abilities, right? Things that you don't have to stand still for as much. So there's going to be a lot more freedom and sort of fluidity in how you build out your class. And that oftentimes provides some really interesting interplay. Even if it is just cookie cutter, even if it is just cookie cutter, the fact that you managed to build it out and you had to pick all of these talents the way that it is, it has some psychological effect on you that just makes you feel good knowing that it feels like you had a lot more control over how you wanted to play on this specific fight. Sometimes having to change talents just because your guild does something differently to how everyone else does it, and the normal build here doesn't work. I feel like talents, again, the modern talents, at least the new ones, provide that opportunity where the old ones didn't really. If your guild decided to do a bonkers fucking talent strategy that required a lot more movement that was normally necessarily possible or needed, you're fucked because you don't have that much freedom to build that way. Whereas now you should technically have that freedom. And I think that's altogether, I think that's a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I just the only problem I see with the way they did some of the certain talent trees, and I'm afraid because I'm a shaman player, and it just feels like we've been shafted for a while now. Like there's a talent that we haven't taken for 3 expansions before, and even when asked, they're just like, well, too bad. And it's like, come on, man,
yeah.
But not having a big button, not having that much raid utility as elemental or resto, just kind of feels like if someone's taking you, they're sort of giving you a
a leg up, just sort of going, come with us.
Yeah, just like we'll do this one favor, and you're like, but why?
Just don't brawl on any gear, because that would be wasted.
You can participate. They give you the participation trophy and call it a day. Yeah. But God, I hated that. But yeah, okay, makes sense. As long as they make the talent trees actually have choice, because I know there's some talent trees that actually made you choose talents that are complete blanks for you. Yeah. And it just sucks going through 5 talent points and then getting to where you need to go and then being like, well, I got what you guys wanted me to, but I lost everything else. And it's like, yeah, but so hopefully they'll figure that out.
What is really nice about the new setup, and Ian sort of spoke about this today also during the Crendor interview, the reason they split the talent trees the way that they did, so you have the class talent tree and then you have your spec talent tree, is so that you don't have dead talents on the side of your spec. So every single talent on the side of the spec is some kind of throughput talent. So it is a talent that will increase your power very specifically. The class side is where you get the more movement or utility. And there is also some power talents on the class side, some stuff that will increase your power as well. But the most part there, those are going to be the things that normally you would have to go through 5 of those, to get to the really meaningful ones. They're now on a separate talent tree, so you don't need to fucking worry about those. And I just quickly wanted to say here, Amethyst Lotus, thank you so much for the $20 or the 20 TRY. Really appreciate that. Thank you. But Renegade, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and I think we have to wait a little, right? We will eventually.
I got all the patience in the world.
Yeah,
I don't mind waiting as long as they give me something good. But if you have to wait and then you get shit, it's just twice as bad.
Let's see how quick they are with this alpha and changing things, because there's going to be a lot of people giving feedback, and hopefully they pay attention to the feedback. So I'm really 100%. Hopeful. But
100%. Even as pessimistic as I am about the management of World of Warcraft and the whole, the way the game's been going, you still need to give credit where credit's due, or else you're just a piece of shit. Like you just complain and that's all you do without giving any criticism. So, no, absolutely. I agree. I guess the last question, it's kind of one of those topics that it's like beating a dead horse, but
yep, I like doing that.
Yeah, me too. Like Arthas's dead horse. I'm sorry. Too soon, probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, my question is this. So balancing. The thing I noticed with games that handle balancing well versus Blizzard's way of handling balancing is it's completely different. Like what I mean by that is, in good games that most people remember, the way the balancing seemed to work was, for instance, you have a class or a spec, and it gets buffed, right? And it becomes fun to play. So what do people do? They all start transferring to that spec or whatever, and it becomes the most popular.
Yeah.
So they have to nerf it. Well, I see this all the time, and my question was always like, why don't you just bring the specs that people aren't playing or that they don't enjoy and bring it to the level of fun that you made that spec? Because obviously whatever you did made that spec fun, and people want to play like that. So just be more creative and create a spec that's also more fun. Like when everything's overpowered, nothing is. Sort of like the Warhammer 40k universe. Everyone's overpowered, so nothing is.
Yes.
So I see this all the time. They make like the Evoker right now. If it does too much damage, has too much utility, instead of nerfing it into the ground, why not just bring all the other specs up a little bit to give them a little more tools to play around with, or more buttons to press, or something else? And I feel like, do you think that's a better approach to balancing, rather than nerfing and bringing everything down and shitting on the parade, so to speak? Wouldn't it just be better to just raise all the other specs up? Maybe give them a little more damage, more spells, something.
All right, let me just very quickly say your Marcus, Jeffrey, Mark, Odrin, thank you so much for the subs, dude. Really appreciate all of you. Thank you. And now to your question. In theory, I absolutely agree with you. It's something that we've spoken about quite a lot in the past, specifically when I still made Warlock content. This would be something that we would quite often talk about. The idea that it's almost always a miserable feeling to be nerfed. Whether you were overpowered or underpowered doesn't matter.
100%.
It feels fucking terrible to be nerfed, and it kind of, it takes so much in this game to swap spec. And then you swap the spec because the spec is broken and overpowered for months on end. And then finally, once you've done everything and you've got all your gear ready, now it gets nerfed into the fucking ground. And it's like, oh, for the love of all things that's fucking good and holy, what the fuck, right? And now you have to switch back to a different spec, and now you have to fucking get that one ready. It's a miserable feeling. Now, there is philosophically the argument that, yes, you should absolutely buff everything else to bring that up to par. But I do also think that there is a downside argument to that. And the downside argument would be, if a spec is so broken, right, so it's doing so much damage, that if you were to buff all of the other specs, then suddenly you would have to do reworks on all the bosses as well. Because remember, that's usually the thing that a lot of people don't keep in mind. bosses are designed with certain numbers in mind, certain breakpoints in mind, certain damage abilities in mind. If, let's say, you have the Evoker, and the Evoker is 15% overpowered. If you buff all of the classes by 15%, then all of the raids are now nerfed by 15%, but it's actually probably more than 15% nerf on all of the raids, because you've thrown everything out of whack, because now certain ads are going to die a lot quicker than what they're supposed to be dying. Certain phases are going to last a lot shorter than what they're supposed to. So you could ultimately end up with like a 40 or a 50% nerf. That's a lot. That's maybe mathematically almost impossible.
Wouldn't it be easier to, like, for instance, tune the raid more after that, rather, because like tuning a raid, I would think, is a lot easier than tuning every single class and specs, like, specifically.
But the problem here is you'd first have to retune all of the other classes, and then also retune the raid, and you'd have to find that sweet spot.
I guess that's fair.
As you've always seen, it takes Blizzard a while to find the sweet spot for every single raid. There's almost always outliers on every side that Blizzard have to nerf multiple times to get it to where they actually want it. So it becomes a serious issue of it's a horrible feeling, but it is the path of least resistance. Just nerf the spec that is overpowered, because, we don't have to do anything else. We don't have to change anything else. We just nerf this one spec. Where I would say...
it's definitely the easy way out.
Yeah, where I would say the biggest issue for me with Blizzard lies is the fact that specs that overpowered even gets into the game to fucking begin with. Right?
Oh yeah, the testing that it requires to probably, fuck up that bad.
You should not have ever a spec that is 10-15% overpowered. At no point. You should not ever have nerfs to the tune of 50%. And this happens more often than people think, where an ability will just be nuked by 50%. There is no fucking chance in hell a well-designed spec that was well play-tested is 50 fucking % overpowered. There's no chance, right? This is why we see these massive swings in Blizzard, where something is either massively overpowered, and then once they do nerf it, they usually tend to nerf it into the fucking ground. This is where that saying came from, hitting it with the Nerf bat, right? Because Blizzard would just completely fuck it.
Have you played League of Legends before?
Yeah. I'm a huge League fan.
These big companies, same here, but these big companies, they started working like, what they started doing, it feels like, is every time they introduce a new character or a new class or a new spec, they make it overpowered to attract a lot of people to play it.
Yeah.
And then once everybody plays it, they nerf it down. But it's just so that people interact with new content, so developers don't feel like they did all this work for nothing. That's what it feels like, honestly. They're all just doing that same thing.
It really does. It is very, very fucking frustrating. But right now, I don't really know what the answer is to that, other than Blizzard needs to playtest a lot more or just respond to feedback a lot better, because it's not like the class discords are quiet about this stuff. Usually during the alpha and the beta, the class discords are very quick to be like, excuse us, that's overpowered, or this is broken, we're not doing enough DPS. Like, I remember back when I still made content for Warlocks, we would know that a certain Warlock spec is completely undertuned literally within a week of the PTR going live. Like, within a week of the PTR going live, I would be making videos going, yeah, Affliction is underpowered. Affliction needs to be buffed. This needs to be buffed. This is not going to work.
Oh, yeah.
I've tasted it.
If you play the character every day, even the smallest changes. I remember at one point, I think in Legion they nerfed like LA Shaman Mastery or something like that, and you could tell the difference, the way your spells used to proc a lot more often, or the way you're like, something feels wrong, but they didn't even mention in the patch notes, and I told the guys in Discord, I was
Yep.
like, guys, something feels off, and they're like, yeah, I know, but I can't tell what it is. It's just it feels like shit. And then they
Exactly.
later released the notes, and they're like, yeah, we nerfed this and this. You're like, you sons of bitches.
Yeah, but
I'm
that's the
sorry.
thing,
Can you cuss
right?
on YouTube?
Yeah, you can fucking swear as much as you want, bro.
It
I
hasn't
don't give a
stopped me
shit.
before.
All right.
I just quickly wanted to say here, Jessica Martini, thank you for the subs. Really appreciate that. Welcome to the channel. Thank you. But no, I think ultimately it is just, it's a relic of modern day gaming. They know that players sort of accept that this is the model, and so they can do it. They can get away with it. It will only change once players stop accepting it. Now, the question is, are we willing to quit playing the game just to fucking because of a class balance issue? I think the answer there is no. Most people wouldn't. Unless your entire class is broken, you're not going to quit the game just because of a class balancing issue. So this is sort of one of those very difficult to fix problems, and also very difficult to motivate them to fix the problem. And maybe also we have to admit it is a difficult problem to solve, not just because there's a lot of specs and a lot of classes and a lot of things that could go missing. But I do think that Blizzard can do a hell of a lot better at figuring out or communicating with their player base, because their player base will tell them what's wrong. They just need to actually listen to the right people. And I just quickly wanted to say, Deep Florin, questions in Discord. So you can join Discord, ask your question in the Q&A, and either join the voice channel to ask your question personally, or one of the mods, or Morny specifically, will read your question and I will answer it. Just sadly, my power is going out in literally 12 minutes, so I can't answer any more questions tonight, but I will be back next week. Anyways, Rengrad, was there anything else that you wanted to ask? Sorry to rush you.
No, I'm done asking. The only thing I would like to say before I go is, since you did mention you like Necrons, and it sounds like you like characters that are complete assholes for no reason other than being an asshole.
Yes.
And I need to recommend this guy to you, because I don't know if you heard of him or not, but there's a Necron called Trazen the Infinite. And he is the biggest self-entitled prick, a self-important prick you've ever seen in your life. But he's so lovable and hilarious, and he's the biggest troll you've ever seen in your life. So he
is my favorite.
Exactly. I love that guy. This guy knows.
The collector.
All right. Well, suggest videos to watch about him on the Discord in the content suggestions page.
I think Bricky might even have one. So
as everyone lovingly refers to it, the Accolonn Forgets to Watch page in Discord. Just suggest it there,
Fair.
and I will get to it soon. TM.
Fair.
But anyways, I really
trademark
appreciate
Blizzard.
the question, Rengrad.
Absolutely.
Take care of yourself.
Have a nice
brother.
day.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.